Half a year ago, I made a video about the best upcoming MMORPGs that haven't been released yet, and in that short amount of time, 4 more AAA studios have come out to say that they too would be making massive AAA MMORPGs. And by my count, that means we're up to about 7 MMORPGs from AAA studios currently in development. People have been trying to convince MMO players that the genre is dying for nearly a decade now, but to be honest, its future has never looked brighter than it does right now. 2023 alone looks nuts. We've got Throne and Liberty coming out in 2023. ZoS is likely going to announce their unannounced title in 2023 for reasons I'll get into later. Ashes of Creation is likely dropping Alpha 2 in 2023. Riot is likely to have official developer announcements beginning in 2023. Those were supposed to start in 2022, but they didn't make it, so my best bet is that that'll start in 23. And according to the developers, Soulframe is going to be in a playable state in 2023. 2023 is looking like it's going to be an absolutely incredible year for the genre, so if you want to be kept up to date on all the latest MMO news, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Now let's dive in and talk about everything we know about the upcoming AAA MMOs currently in development. Horizon Online by NCSoft and Sony. In a surprising twist that no one saw coming in our timeline, Sony and NCSoft have seemingly teamed up to make an MMORPG for the Horizon franchise. This is a fascinating concept to think about. Sony is responsible for titles like God of War and Horizon, games with amazing storytelling, while NCSoft has put out some incredibly successful MMOs like Lineage 2 and even Guild Wars 2 by way of ArenaNet. These two teams could be the perfect marriage. NCSoft stated that they have an internal development team working on the title. Meanwhile, we've seen job postings from ArenaNet about working on an Unreal Engine 5 powered online fantasy RPG. Is ArenaNet working on Horizon Online? Are they working on Guild Wars 3 or neither? I don't know yet, but let's stick to what we do know. Negotiations have concluded and development has begun. So it sounds like this NCSoft-Sony partnership is actually happening. You have to imagine that since it's an important franchise for Sony, Sony would keep the monetization of the MMO, let's say, purer than NCSoft titles have come to be known for in recent years, which means we could see a title that has NCSoft quality, Sony lore, and Sony monetization. That's a combination of things I'm excited to see in action. The Horizon franchise has been heralded as one of the best out there, and its world really does lend itself to an MMO type of setting. Seeing that this MMO has only just been announced and that the ink on the Sony NC partnership looks like it's still wet, I'm going to assume it's probably a solid 5 to 6 years from release. I've got to be honest, I didn't see this MMO or this partnership coming, but in a lot of ways it makes perfect sense and I'm excited to follow it. Next up, we've got Archeage 2 by Cacao Games. I was writing and recording this video when out of nowhere Cacao Games dropped this absolutely stunning trailer for Archeage 2, already surpassing my expectations for this game. The timing couldn't have been more perfect, so I'm adding this section at the last second. And thanks to an interview from the developer, we have some great information to share. The game will be released on console and PC, and they're shooting for a 2024 release date. This is going to be another MMO built on Unreal Engine 5, and it's crazy to see how good these MMOs are looking on Unreal 5. We first learned about Archeage 2 about 2 years ago, but haven't heard a lot since, until this week when they dropped this gorgeous teaser trailer. According to the developers, this game is going to feature a seamless open world, and if you're following the progress of Ashes of Creation, you'll see some familiar features in Archeage 2, as Ashes has drawn significant inspiration from Archeage 1. The developers plan for Archeage 2 to have action-packed combat as seen in the footage playing right now, and they're putting a lot of time and money into telling an immersive and compelling story. They also said that it's very important to them that the game has AAA visuals and takes advantage of Unreal Engine 5's capabilities, and based on the early footage, it looks like they're succeeding on this front. The game aims to have a more non-linear progression and to focus on a more personal story and journey than Archeage 1 did. The story of the game will portray Aurora when it was first discovered and people were first starting to settle there. The story will involve discovering and solving the mysteries of an ancient civilization that had been forgotten for thousands of years, leaving it to blend in with the natural environment. And this kind of reminds me of the Dwemer from Elder Scrolls' franchise, except this time you're actually going to get to solve the mystery around this lost and forgotten race. The developers went on to say that Archeage 1 had trade runs that were enjoyable but had many flaws, so in Archeage 2 they're going to bring the system back but greatly enhance it. Players will be allowed to participate in these both alone or in teams, and the system might remind you of Ashes of Creation's caravans. They also pointed out that housing was a popular feature from the original title, so this time they're going to be improving that and adding more customization, as well as allowing players to live in towns with their friends and even create their own towns with their guild members. We are now wrapping up 2022 and stepping into 2023, and this game is slated for a 2024 release date. That's great news. Between this and the other MMOs on this list, we're going to have plenty of MMOs to try out in the next few years. Clearly, good MMOs are hard to find. Fortunately, good VPNs aren't, which brings us to the sponsor of today's video. Did you know NordVPN is the fastest VPN? Yep, this has been tested and verified. With over 5,200 servers in 59 countries, there is a server near you with blazing fast speeds no matter where you are, giving you the best connection to your games and TV shows. Speaking of games and TV shows, a lot of games are sold cheaper in other countries, or sometimes not available in your country at all. You can use NordVPN to browse games and prices in 59 different countries to find the best deals for you. You can also find streaming platforms at lower prices by placing yourself virtually in those countries. Can't watch a show because it's airing in a different region than what you're currently located? Use your VPN to be there virtually so that you can watch what you want to watch when you want to watch it. If all of that isn't enough, NordVPN also has threat protection with advanced anti-malware capabilities. Nord has become more than just a VPN. It's a powerful cybersecurity tool that can protect you from malware, spies, and stalkers. If you aren't already protecting yourself with NordVPN, or if you're curious about the access to games and TV shows around the world, try NordVPN now. The best part is it's absolutely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guaranteed. If you're not satisfied in any way, cancel and get your money back. Use my link to get exclusive NordVPN pricing at nordvpn.com/luckyghost. For your convenience, I'll also toss the link in the description down below. Thanks for listening. Let's talk about the next upcoming MMO. Next up, we have Soulframe by Digital Extremes. Digital Extremes, the creators of the incredibly popular Warframe franchise, have announced that they would be also making an MMORPG. Recent additions to Warframe saw them adding more and more MMO-like features, including sprawling open-world zones that felt like they were trying to pivot Warframe itself into being an MMORPG. Well, it looks like rather than trying to turn Warframe into a classic MMORPG, they're just going to create an actual MMORPG called Soulframe. They just began actual work on the MMO in the spring, but it's going to utilize the same engine as Warframe, which should greatly speed up its development. They are calling the two sister titles and saying that improvements to one game can be implemented into the other. In fact, they even went as far as to say they hope to have people in and playing the game within a year. Now, given that a good MMORPG tends to take the better part of a decade to develop, this sounds incredibly ambitious. It does make me wonder how deep of an MMORPG it could be if they intend to have people playing it inside of a year. I assume they're talking super early testing of super basic systems, but let's just say that I'm definitely curious to see how much of Warframe is going to be repurposed and repackaged in this game to make this timeline possible. If you're a fan of Warframe, don't worry, their plan is still very much to continue supporting Warframe after Soulframe releases. The plan is for it to be a fantasy, magic-heavy MMORPG, much more of your typical melee and magic type of universe than the Warframe sci-fi gun-heavy universe. If you've played Warframe, you know exactly how fast-paced it can be. As a new player, you quickly realize that if you want to keep up with your teammates, you better get good at leaping through the air, and fast. Soulframe aims to slow that down to a more impactful and slow combat style, much more suitable for MMOs and the group content that they offer. It'll be interesting to see how they go about monetizing this MMORPG. Warframe tends to focus on monetizing pay to advance faster. A lot of things in that game take a very long time to grind or research. And when it comes to MMORPGs, pay to advance faster is often a nice way of calling something pay to win. So I kind of hope that they approach the monetization from a different angle for the MMO's sake. As of right now, they've given no indication of what the monetization model will be, other than that it will be free to play. If all of that sounds interesting, you can swing by the website now to reserve your in-game display name. All you have to do is solve the puzzle on the landing page. And by the way, if you just want the answer to that puzzle, here it is. Ultimately, I'm excited to try this one out. I love Warframe's art style and have sunk quite a bit of time into it, but I've always stepped away as the grind that is put there to incentivize you to pay to advance faster inevitably just becomes too much, and I put the game down again. Still, it's a quality game, and the idea of this developer working on an MMO is something I'm definitely excited about. Next up, we've got a Dune MMO from Funcom. Back in 2019, Funcom announced that they were working on a Dune MMO, but this year we finally got an actual announcement with more details and a cinematic trailer. We don't have a lot to go on this one other than what we know from the cinematic trailer they released and their website. Dune Awakening combines the grittiness and creativity of survival games with the social interactivity of large-scale, persistent multiplayer games to create a unique and ambitious open-world survival MMO. Rise from the survival to dominance in a vast and seamless Arrakis shared by thousands of players. Now, this is the developer that made Conan Exiles, which is described as an online multiplayer survival game with mounts and mounted combat set in the lands of Conan the Barbarian. Survive in a vast open world sandbox, build a home and kingdom to dominate your enemies. So there seems to be a lot of overlap in the two games, both in their description and in their design. It sounds like Dune is going to be a more ambitious version of Conan Exiles that takes place in the Dune universe instead of the Conan universe. Instead of dozens of players on a server, Dune will have thousands. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in a game where you are meant to gather materials and build a base to defend yourself from other players and the wilderness. They go on to say that you will survive the most dangerous planet in the universe, build shelters against sandstorms, maintain your still suit, and master the old ways to walk even deeper into the desert. Avoid or be devoured by the colossal sandworms that dwell beneath the sands. Right now, I'm totally picturing this being like playing Rust, but in the desert with a giant sandworm roaming around trying to kill me. The best materials and ingredients I'm assuming will be deeper into the desert, farther from the safety of my fort. So perhaps I'll spend a lot of time upgrading my still suit to venture farther into the dangerous deserts without dying, thus returning with better rewards. Of course, one of the primary resources you'll be looking for is spice. This is Dune after all, so much of your time will be spent seeking it out. But remember, as mentioned earlier, the sandworms won't be your only threat. Much like Rust or Conan Exiles, other players will be seeking out these valuable resources and likely will try to kill you to take yours. If you do manage to succeed in your hunt for spice, you'll be able to consume the spice to conquer your senses and acquire powerful abilities. Beyond that, you'll also be able to hone your crafting from financial gain, as well as construct a fortress in the style of your choosing. I think the most interesting thing about describing your base as a fortress here is that it makes it sound like your structure is going to be able to be quite substantial in both size and scope. While Conan's Exile isn't the most popular game in the world, it has generated mostly positive ratings on Steam and has kept the niche community quite happy. It's going to be interesting to see how much more appeal a similar but grander game can generate with a Dune name attached to it. I'm definitely excited to try this one out, and I'll continue to follow it. Next up, we have Project LLL from NCSoft. By the looks of this list, it sounds like NCSoft has been incredibly busy and has a lot planned for the near future. LLL is a first-person shooter MMORPG. It sounds like it's going to be a direct competitor to games like Destiny. The coolest part about this announcement was that it came with 9 minutes of actual gameplay footage. Not CGI, not renderings, not graphic art, 9 minutes of someone actually playing the game. So this game is a substantially long way into development. Normally, we don't get to see actual gameplay for MMOs until years after we've heard the game's name whispered over the internet. So yeah, I love this. And the game looks solid. The gunplay looks great. I can definitely see this game being a hit with past or present Destiny players. It was also announced that the game has a vast open world in which more than 30 square kilometers of land are seamlessly connected to a single environment. The core elements that make up the open world are uninterrupted loading and movement. To convey a seamless environment, they've implemented content streaming and utilized the most cutting-edge rendering technology. So it sounds like this is going to try and have more of an open world feel as opposed to its primary competitor Destiny, which is a lot more of a lobby-based MMO feel to it. To put that into perspective, 30 square kilometers is about the same size as GTA 5. Based on the gameplay that we saw, there appears to be a lot of sci-fi and horror elements, grotesque enemies, a mega boss of some sort that appears to be made of 1,000 arms. I didn't see any quote-unquote magic like you do in a traditional MMO. More so, we saw a character utilize rockets fired over his shoulder from a backpack gadget, a jetpack for jumping to higher places, and even some kind of shield to protect him from incoming enemy fire. By far, the most common weapon used was his rifle, which was used to take down 90% of the enemies in the video. So it looks like this is definitely a shooter first and foremost. Given that it is an MMO, I do wonder if or how many classes it might have. Will it have abilities? Is it entirely gear-based? Will we have passives? There's so much more that we still need to learn. All in all, it looks like a pretty cool world. It's got a very dark and gritty feel to it. The gunplay looks like it feels solid, and it looks like it's very much in a playable state, which means that this one is likely to release sooner than most of the MMOs on this list. Next up, we have Throne and Liberty, yet another NCSoft MMO. Throne and Liberty is a Triple A MMORPG set to be released on console and PC in 2023. NCSoft recently partnered with Amazon Game Studios to have them publish the game here in the West. Throne and Liberty is the spiritual successor to Lineage 2. In fact, Throne and Liberty was originally going to be the next Lineage game, but in writing the story for the game, NCSoft realized it would be best served as an entirely new IP. As someone who put quite a few hours into Lineage 2 and then into Lineage 2 Classic, I'm really curious to see how much of Lineage 2 will still be in the game. Recently, NCSoft announced that the aim of the game is to allow freedom, minimum rules, and creative play. They talked about the pros and the cons of instance and non-instance dungeons, but I couldn't tell which way they planned to land on the topic as it was translated from Korean to English, which has been one of the most unfortunate parts of all of this. Little to no information has been provided to Western audiences so far. We've very much felt like a little bit of an afterthought in NCSoft games in the past, and it's beginning to feel that way all over again with Throne and Liberty. Hopefully their collaboration with AGS starts to solve this problem in the near future. From what we could translate, it looks like Throne and Liberty will have a day and night cycle where it's 4 hours of day and 1 hour of night, with that 1 hour of night potentially being open to PvP. Again, the details here are incredibly fuzzy thanks to translation. The game will feature gliding, and your gliding distance will will be impacted by the wind, either in your favor or against it, depending on your direction relative to the winds. I absolutely love the amount of mobility it looks like they have integrated into Throne and Liberty between the grapple hook, the gliding, and the transformations. Getting around the world should be a lot of fun. The game plans to play differently between day and night, as well as when it's rainy or sunny. Skills and abilities will perform differently. Throne and Liberty will also feature siege battles. The siege battles look like they will be a significant part of the game, much like they were in Lineage 2. Just look at the footage on the screen right now. It looks like it's going to be pretty epic. Apparently, even the siege battles are going to be affected by the weather. For instance, certain passages into the castle won't be available if it's rained, as they'll be flooded. In Lineage 2, when guilds won siege battles, they'd end up controlling that castle or town for a week or two, usually profiting heavily until it was allowed to be sieged again. At this point, they would have to defend it. It was a massive part of the game, and the spread out nature of the siege battles allowed for a nice balance of PvE and PvP content. It's going to be interesting to see how much of the PvP in Throne and Liberty is inspired by the Lineage 2 siege system. And if you recall, these are the same systems that have heavily inspired Ashes of Creation. In Throne and Liberty, the player is going to be highly mobile with the ability to grapple onto objects and surfaces of varying heights. So this should allow for some excellent verticality and zone design, and should pair brilliantly with its ability to use gliders. NCSoft has made and published some amazing MMOs in its time, and it absolutely has the knowledge and the potential to do so again. When I talked about this game 6 months ago, it was slated to be released at the end of 2022, and I speculated that since we still didn't know anything about it 6 months ago, it was going to get pushed back to 2023. And sure enough, they announced their partnership with AGS and pushed the release date back to 2023. And here we are at the end of 2022, approaching the beginning of 2023, and we still don't know anything about this game. So here's hoping they drop some big information about this game to the West so that we can start getting excited about it. Next up on the list is Ashes of Creation. Ashes of Creation is a massive MMO featuring a beautiful, seamless open world, and is set to release on PC with no current plans for console. As of right now, no official release date has been announced, but we still know a heck of a lot more about this game than we do Throne and Liberty, which is set to be released next year. This is thanks to the fact that the developers have put a lot of effort into keeping the community updated on the progress of its development. This has allowed creators and the community to give their feedback every step of the way, which I've thoroughly enjoyed participating in, with Asmongold and even Steven Sharif himself weighing in on my video. The Too Long Didn't Watch was basically that since the game is an open world, always on PvP MMO, it's important to make sure that the losing side is able to enjoy the game. Otherwise, it won't be long before the winning side doesn't have anyone to play against. Protect the players from excessive griefing or risk losing them forever. This has been a common problem with this brand of MMO, but I think if any always-on PvP MMO stands a chance to succeed where the rest have failed, it's Ashes of Creation. Unlike many of the games on this list, Ashes of Creation has already had a very public and very successful Alpha 1 back in July of 2021, where players were allowed to play and stream and make content about the state of the game so far. It was both a confirmation of the fact that what has been made so far was beautiful, but also that the game was a long way from being finished. Since then, we have seen some impressive progress, including the announcement that they've switched from UE4 to UE5. The visual fidelity noticeably improved with this change, as recent live streams of the game have been nothing short of stunning. Make no mistake, this is going to be an absolutely gorgeous universe. I don't know what they're feeding the artists at Intrepid, but I hope they keep it up. This year, they also showcased a sophisticated character creation screen that allowed them to create highly customizable characters that looked amazing. They showed demonstrations of the melee combat as well as the archer combat, and the archer combat especially looked fantastic. There are definitely some abilities in that kit that look like they're going to be a lot of fun. The next major milestone for the game is going to be Alpha 2, which is described as a persistent alpha. While details on this are light, it sounds like the game will be more or less permanently up, and they intend to have the core of the game assembled for that phase. Intrepid hasn't given any indication of when Alpha 2 will be, but I will be 100% jumping in when it goes live. A lot of people were hoping that Alpha 2 would come in 2022, but it looks like that opportunity has come and gone, so now it looks like 2023 is the best bet. Ashes of Creation defines loot boxes, XP potions, and inventory problems as pay to win, and in my opinion, that is a massive breath of fresh air. It looks like the monetization of Ashes of Creation will be 100% above board. This is just one more reason I think it stands a fantastic chance of succeeding where its predecessors have failed, and is one of the major reasons I'm rooting for it. The best skins will be earned in game, and if I understand it correctly, it looks like the weapon cosmetics won't even be available in the cash shop. They will be earned by playing the game. The game will be sub to play with no box purchase necessary. Combine all of that with its beautiful world, traditional MMO design, and ambitious scope, and you can instantly see why Ashes of Creation is currently one of the most anticipated MMOs today. It will feature the holy trinity of tank, healer, and DPS. Combat can be a make or break feature for the genre, and after seeing the Archer playtest, I am incredibly excited. I can't wait to see what they have planned for the rest of the classes. Ashes of Creation is not content to build a better version of what came before it. It also has some incredibly innovative features, including things things like plans to have a dynamic world that changes based on player behavior. Specific nodes can be upgraded to unlock new content and new resources based on player activity in an area, which means that every server could look completely different from every other server. Which nodes have metropolises and which nodes have wilderness, that'll be decided by the players. If the community spends enough time in an area, they might uncover a dungeon or a raid that was previously not available. I hope that they somehow hide some of the mystery from the player base so that we don't all know which nodes need to be leveled up on day one for the best loot. As of right now, Ashes is already a long way into its development, but I'd guess it's still at least 3 years from being complete. It's worth noting that it really does feel like Intrepid has ramped up their progress this year with one incredible live stream after another with details of their recent progress. This is definitely one of the more unique and interesting MMOs to follow on this list right now, especially if you're a fan of good PvP in an MMO. Next up, we have Riot's MMO that takes place in the same world as League of Legends. Riot has announced that they are working on an MMO. This excites me because Riot reminds me a lot of Blizzard from the early 2000s. Everything they make seems to turn to gold. They made an entire fictional world in League of Legends, and now they're turning that into a TV show and an MMO. You can draw a lot of parallels to the way that Warcraft 1, 2, and 3 were turned into a MOBA and a movie and an MMO. It's exciting to think that any of the MMOs on this list could be the next one to capture the genre the way that WoW did in its prime, but Riot's track record so far suggests that it's definitely one of the most likely candidates to succeed. Simply put, Riot has the talent and the money to make any game they want, and has the track record of doing so with excellence. Not only that, they have a built-in player base ready to try the game the second it drops, just like Blizzard did when it launched WoW. Almost everything we know about the game so far has been taken from the Twitter account of Greg Street, aka Ghostcrawler. As of 2021, he said that most senior roles were filled, and he said that he would go as far as to say lead rewards designer is one of the most important roles in this or any MMO. I can't explain how hard I agree with this comment. It's mind-blowing to me the number of MMOs that don't understand that rewards are what drive the MMO players to continue playing after they hit max level. Failure to create exciting rewards, or worse yet, putting all of the exciting rewards in the cash shop, will always put a lower ceiling on the success an MMO can achieve. In recent interviews that he has also clarified were not directly about Riot's MMO specifically, just about MMO development in general, it sounded like he felt like he could make the free-to-play model work. I do wonder how he would align these two statements if the Riot MMO does go that route. How does a free-to-play MMO also have compelling rewards? Typically, the rewards are the first thing that the cash shop cannibalizes in a free-to-play MMO. First, it's a cool weapon skin, then it's the best weapon skin. First, it's a cool mount, then it's the best mount. It's been a long time since I saw a new MMO avoid this pitfall, and I'm really hoping to see Riot avoid the mistake. If they do go free-to-play, as he seemed to insinuate in his discussion, it'll be fascinating to see what innovative approach they take here. Greg has explained that they're aiming for mass appeal. He said, I think it's safe to say we're not aiming for a niche product. Some games do great with 500,000 very loyal players who love the game. That's awesome, but that's not what we're going for. This is Riot saying, we're swinging for the fences. We consider moderate success a complete failure. We want to be the next WoW. And given that Greg Street worked on WoW during its glory years, I think that he's a prime candidate to succeed on that front. Greg did confirm that the Riot MMO will have raids and dungeons, and a significant PvE presence does not mean a lack of PvP. As Ghostcrawler confirmed, PvP will be in the game, and that they see a future that includes epic PvP battles and even esports. The MMO genre has struggled to create and maintain a competitive PvP scene for some time now, so it'll be exciting to see how Riot approaches this piece of the puzzle. One of the most contentious things that Greg has said so far is when he was asked about tab targeting, he said he thinks combat in the genre is dated, and if we combine that information with a job posting seeking an action combat designer, it looks like the game's combat is aiming to evolve past the tab target days of WoW and Final Fantasy XIV. The game appears to be being built on Unreal Engine and is hiring developers with Unreal Engine experience. Based on what we've seen from Ashes of Creation in UE5, I can't wait to see how gorgeous Riot's MMO looks in that same engine. I have a feeling Riot will go a much different direction with its art style, so I'm guessing it's going to be a lot more cartoony or stylized than, say, Ashes of Creation. It's also been confirmed that the game will have the Holy Trinity, and when asked about the Holy Trinity, Greg says it mostly works, and it sounds like he intends to build group content with that traditional tank, healer, and DPS setup in mind. And don't worry, they've also got fishing confirmed to be in the game. Greg was hoping to have public dev updates start in 2022, but with 2022 coming to a close, it looks like those are going to have to start happening in 2023. Still, that would mean that those aren't far away at all now. Greg talked about a party size of 6 for dungeons in a tweet of March of 22. I think this would be great. I'm tired of long DPS queues because there's never nearly as many tanks as there are DPS. He also clarified that Riot is not trying to reinvent the MMO. They want to make something familiar while innovating a little bit where it makes sense. They plan to make race cosmetics so that you can focus on making your character how you want it to look. Now, this doesn't mean that you're losing a choice. It means that that choice is going to take place somewhere that doesn't dictate how your character is going to look. As of right now, we have no idea when Riot's MMO will be released, but based on other games in the category, a 4 to 7 year window seems reasonable, which would make the game due for release around 2025 to 2028. Good thing there are so many other MMOs on this list to hold us over, because that's too damn far away. Next, we have the ZeniMax Online Studios MMORPG, or at least that's what we think they're making. This next one's pretty interesting. ZeniMax Online Studios, the developers of Elder Scrolls Online, is working on what appears to be multiple projects, and one of which seems to be an MMO. Concrete details are very light on this one, so forgive us as we delve into some speculation. All they've said so far is that they're working on a game that is grand in every sense of the word, and job listings have more or less filled in what little else we know. Ben Jones was hired in 2018 as the creative director of a still unannounced project at ZeniMax Online Studios. If we sum up Ben's career, we see shooters and we see a passion project about a game that takes place in space. ZeniMax also hired artists that are experienced in spaceship themed level design, so let's take a look at what else we think we know. ZeniMax Online makes online games, so we can assume at the very least they are working on a multiplayer title. We can take a leap and assume their hiring page hints at a new MMO, as it says, "We've learned a lot from bringing the world of Elder Scrolls Online to life, and it's time for us to take those lessons learned and build a new AAA IP. The vision for our next game is grand in every sense of the word, and that's why we're developing a new engine to support the needs of the project and the studio. Because we're in early pre-production, this is the perfect time to join us and make your mark on an incredible new project." They're describing a game that is massive and will utilize what they learned from ESO to create a new IP. So it's massive, not unlike ESO, but it's also definitely not ESO because it's a new IP. And they are building the engine in-house, meaning it wouldn't be one of the many UE5 MMOs in the works. The interesting thing about this is we also saw ZeniMax Online Studios post job listings requesting Unreal Engine experience. So because we know ZoS is both building its own engine for something huge and potentially building something else on Unreal Engine, I wonder what the possible UE project is. What we know is ZeniMax Online Studios, the maker of Elder Scrolls Online, has been working on a new unannounced project since at least 2018, and it was confirmed in 2019 by Matt Furr. They recently reiterated that they've got over 200 people working on the game spread all over the world, with a team of 50 working directly under the game director Ben Jones. They have described it as grand and massive and benefiting from their experience making ESO. They have hired people with experience with space-themed things, and rumor mills are suggesting something space-related. One of their projects appears to be an MMO on an in-house engine, while the other appears to be something being built on Unreal Engine. Both are likely to be online games. The grand in every sense of the word project is 4.5 years into development. ESO took 7 years to release, but only took 5 years to officially announce. That means 2023 is looking like the perfect year for ZoS to announce what the new project is. Look at all of that. I mean, what a lineup. But that's not all. Then there's the titan of the genre lurking silently in the foreground. Blizzard still has what is arguably the biggest MMORPG in the world. They haven't announced it yet, but if you think they aren't working on their own successor to WoW, you're crazy. They've already tried once and scrapped the project, turning the remains into what we now know as Overwatch. No doubt they've started anew. Blizzard has millions of MMORPG fans waiting for that next big MMO, and I'm sure they have every intention of being the one to deliver it. So if we toss them into the hat, that means we've got 8 MMORPGs currently in development by Triple A Studios. I highly doubt Blizzard intends to just watch as the likes of Riot and others come to take another piece of its already shrinking pie. But what will Blizzard's next MMO look like? World of Warcraft 2? World of StarCraft? World of Diablo? What do you think? Which MMOs are you excited about? Which ones are you not excited about? Let me know down in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe for more MMO content. Massive shout out to my YouTube members for supporting the channel so that I can bring you the best quality content possible. If you want to become a YouTube member for channel badges, access to a private Discord channel, and behind the scenes footage, click the join button down below. If you're not sure what to do next, consider watching one of the MMORPG videos popping up on screen right now. See you in the next video.